Welcome to the channel. This is Reliable Rudy. Before we get into a stock market recap, let me just make sure a couple things are set up properly, and we will get this recap underway. Also, before we get into the recap, you guys know I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Uh, I'm just a guy. Uh, Hold on, getting a call. As I was saying, I'm just a guy. I'm simply just sharing my opinion here. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I believe the stock market in the short run is simply just a voting machine. Uh, in the long run, I think it's a weighing machine. In the short run, I have a vote. Person next to me has a vote. Person next to him has a vote as well. Some people have bigger votes than others. So, uh, just sharing my opinion here with this analysis. I do have a request to go over a TRVN. I assume this is more of a day trade, and yes, it does look more like a day trade right here. So first thing, if I'm looking at a day trade, I want to look at the daily. This gives me a longer view of what the stock has been doing, and in a sense, I'd want to mark out sort of some sort of downtrend or long-term trend of the stock. And the way I would picture this is it's kind of a wedge pattern, but really bullish move right here, of course, as you can see. Now, if I was looking at this relative strength, if I was looking to take a positive break, you see how we're just hovering around this near oversold area right here. And the ticker for this is TRVN. Now, if I was looking to take an entry on this, the clear resistance it needs to get over is these previous tops right here. Now you can see it does that relatively early. We'll go to a 15-minute chart early here shortly. But then I just want to mark the previous lows as well, just to kind of give me a sense of where some general outs are. And I can see on this previous low, you can see we kind of reject it before we continue this downtrend to the downside. And then also right here, you can see this previous low gets rejected as it retraces and rejects that previous low. So is this downtrend set perfectly? Probably not, but that's just kind of how I would map out what I'd be looking for. So let's go over to the 15-minute chart and take a look at this. Now you can see from the open of the day, it gives you that breakout over your first levels, and it breaks through all of these levels I have set. Now you see a little bit of resistance come in right here. But these EMAs are kind of where, if I was really looking for a strong movement, I can see a lot of green volume coming into this. So what I'd want to do is I'd want to go to an hour chart, and you can see we put in two nice green candles, one consolidation candle, and then we actually take out the high of that candle, and we're wicking into the top of that. So now I'd want to mark this previous top. You can see how we wick into that previous high right off the beginning. Now also, this first hour candle, you can see on our pullback, our indecision candle right here, we pull back and retest that previous high as well. So looking back at this 15-minute chart, you can see that first hour candle of the day actually gives you a level that corresponds really nicely uh, in with a moving average as well. So, or not a moving average, an EMA. So you get this pullback. Now, let's just clear the chart. Now, if I was just marking technicals right here, we already state that this first hour candle, we're looking for a pullback to retest that. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to know and not going to be able to get wick low every single time. More than likely, you're not going to get that fill. But right here, as we're falling down, you can see I would probably have some sort of descending channel right here. Now, you do break this initially, in this next indecision candle that comes in. If you wanted to, you could actually adjust this top one and say, hey, I just want to see if this level is going to be some sort of descending channel. Now you can see we take out that high and we actually take out the wick high right here. So now with that taking out that wick high, let's say you don't get the entry and you're trying to find an entry, as soon as you put in a nice green candle like this, I would be looking to buy this previous top. Now you can see we hold this level. Now you could also say, hey, I'm looking for a retest of right here. Obviously, this meets in at a 250 level, and you wouldn't have gotten that fill. But those are kind of a couple different ways that I'd be looking to play this as a day trade. Now, are you going to get the continuation on this? I don't know. But that's kind of my recap on this. Now, you could also have some sort of uptrend set in with this. But this one is a little bit tougher to find that uptrend. Uh, but now that, let's take out all those levels again, but now that you have these two little tops right here, you could say, you know, I'm looking for this to continue showing resistance, and I just want to find some sort of parallel channel meeting in with this, and I'd want to see if this channel can hold. So that's a little bit of my looks of how I would play in a sense with the day trade. So now I'm gonna go pull over the Twitter that we have. We posted some sticky notes for today. Let's just get a refresh on this. Go back to the profile. Now the first sticky note that we posted for the day, you know, got all right traction. We had 29 views. I can live with that. Now I think the first one I posted was this DLX. It was the earnings I looked at. I think they reported on Thursday. I looked at this earnings report over the weekend. I thought there was a lot of good things. Still a slight share dilution, but I think it's manageable compared to what a lot of other companies have for their share dilution. But looking over at DLX, let's go take a look at this. Now, I did not buy this simply because I think that it's still a little bit relatively weak. But here you can see that we're still on a 15-minute chart. So how I have this mapped out earlier is I like this nice triple bottom that it puts in here before we get a nice retracement. So all I did was kind of mark something like that, connecting those and how it acted with it on the earnings day. Now another thing that I also had said is that this has a clear descending wedge right here. So I'm looking for it to pick a direction on which way this wants to go. But in terms of financials, I think gross margin wise, pretty solid gross margins. Let's go take a look at everything else we said. We said solid earnings, interesting support set up at 12.50, so we'll look at that. The ex dividend date for this company is May 19th. So we're sitting at May 8th right now, so I'm looking at the next 10 to 11 days as a potential. Is there going to be increased volume coming into this, trying to get in before that dividend? That is pretty attractive. Descending wedge, we just talked about the descending wedge. Wait for a break. That's insinuating that you're looking for it to break in one way or the other. And then also looking at this DLX, let me go make sure. Excuse me. So yeah, solid gross margins on this company. Now the operating and profit margin that they have, not as high, but I'm still really focused on that gross margin. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about right here. So this doesn't have their most recent earnings report in there, but this is a good example. So here's the little bit of share dilution that we have. So not very much, and you can see just a slight share dilution after this 2017 where they did buy back a good chunk of shares, and now there's just been a slight share dilution right here. So really not as alarming right there. But here is that gross margin that I was talking about, and they have been consistently a profitable company, so that is why part of the reason why I'm a little bit interested in this. So another level that I was very interested in was this 1250 level, which is right over here, this nice double bottom that it puts in over here. And this is actually around that 1225, but I said on the sticky note 1250 so we can mark sort of like a base window sort of in between that range right there. But also what's really interesting is this gap fill that we have right here. That does not get filled, but it gets very close. So if I do see over the next week or so, I do think that I may test this support area if we get a breakdown through this descending wedge. And simply, I just think the valuation right here, and here is that dividend date that's coming in on this. So I'm looking for a break of this wedge in some way, shape, or form, but I can also see this is probably some sort of secondary wedge that's building in right here. as it's been resisting this area. So I want to see this continue to hold and maybe get a break for some sort of move into this gap fill, which you could say mark your previous lows, which it rejected already once, and you could say this is probably a little bit of resistance right here as well. So even from like the current trade, let's say you just bought this and said, hey, I think it's possible we can get a 6% move, maybe a 12% move, maybe even an 18% move into the top end of this wedge. So this is a new one that I am going to be looking at over the next couple weeks. So moving forward, the next one we posted, crude oil, interesting resistance at 73 to 74. Relative strength on this name is still negative 51, so getting closer to that middle range where I'm a lot more interested in some oil plays if crude can show strength, especially fighting through this resistance level. But then it also has pretty interesting support at this 60 to 70, over 75. I'm going to be bullish on oil. So let's go take a look at the oil chart. I can see back-to-back nice green candles after, this is your 200 weekly that tested right here. I'm not going to go show that, but you also have a solid uptrend of support that's building into these 60s. But then you also have quite a bit of support built in these low 60s, that could go into the upper 50s as well. Obviously, I have downside risk marked on this as this is your previous high if this support does give out. So potential move to the downside could be incoming for oil. But this was when I was really happy about oils, when it got this gap up, put in these nice two green candles breaking over these highs, but obviously clear rejection. So I do have a descending wedge drawn in right here. I just want to see this support continue to hold if this gets rejected. So looking more so at this 74 resistance that I'm looking at, this is your previous lows right here. Sorry, somebody just walked into the house. But yeah, this is that 74 resistance that I want to see it fight through. But you can see we're putting a wick into that 73 low. So I say 73 to 74 and a half. And this is that 74 and a half. So if it can show me that it can fight through this, and you can see relative strength still at that negative 51, can it show me the strength and get to that positive break on oil? So that is what I'm looking for there. So the next, we'll move on and go through this a little bit quicker. So stock market to the GDP ratio for the S&P 500, based off of the April GDP numbers that we got, uh, it's still insinuating. Now this does not mean that the market is just going to sell off immediately. This is just insinuating that uh, overvaluation for that fair value where the S&P trades at right now is plus or minus, give or take, 69%. Uh, over 50%. When this ratio trades over 50%, and I'm insinuating that 69% overvalued, the 10-year average return for the S&P in times like this is negative 0.05%. So this is why we're in such an interesting time right now where, where I say in the short run, stocks are just a big voting machine. I have a vote, someone else has a vote, and so on. But in the long run, I think that uh, stocks in general and also ETFs will eventually trade near their intrinsic value in the long run. Obviously, I'm insinuating a 10-year average right here. That is what I'm looking at as as a long-term weighing machine where historically over 50% you're getting a negative return, not counting dividends, of course, with the stock market. Now, there are fairly priced stocks out there. I'm not saying that everything is just terrible, but majority aren't, is what I'm saying here with this sticky note. And then the other one, DAL and AAL, Delta and American Airlines. These are two stocks that I've been looking at. Now, obviously, I've talked about this 34 level on DAL many times, and I believe on Friday I stated that, I thought AAL's chart setup around that 14 flat was a lot better of a setup. Now, relative strength, very close when you're in these middle grounds for relative strength, these areas, in my opinion, are where the big players are at. And there's going to be a battle that's going to take place. So let's go take a look at DAL. So DAL holding right around that 34 level, but you can see you get the gap up, you wick down into the middle of this green candle, which is below 34. But this is what I was talking about, where that relative strength is very close, negative 28 on relative strength. If this can catch a bid, where it's actually catching some buyers over top of this gap fill right here, if this catches a bid, I've talked many times, multiple days now, about my target outs for this, where I'm looking at this as it's sort of a neckline break where left leg, you build a neckline, you set a right bottom, which is higher low, which also meets up with a nice trend line. If it can take out, the 50 period, which is running around this area, I think potential outs up to the top end of this channel is more than reasonable. So Delta, I talk about 34 flat. We're sitting right at 34 and holding it on the day. AAL. Now this is why I thought this chart setup was a little bit better. You see how we don't have that sell-off down to these lows like Delta did, uh, but here's your bull flag continuation. So you set a run 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to the upside, and here's your consolidation period, and here's your bull flag continuation. Now obviously you get the gap up, and I liked 14 flat a lot better, which is right in around this area. Obviously 14 flat hasn't come into play today. So looking at the 15-minute chart, does it need to work out the kinks and kind of just consolidate to these previous tops, which is your 14 flat? If I just mark these tops right here, 1401. So that is going to be in play this week if we continue to get that pullback by into that 14 flat area. So that is what I'm going to be looking for with AAL. So moving forward, those were 4 sticky notes right there. The next one, PayPal, MRVI, both earnings after hours, relative strength close on both names, solid chart setups. I think that they are solid chart setups on both these names. So let's start with PayPal. And nice continuation off the open today. But I have this marked as sort of a neckline where this is the left leg, build a neckline, set the right bottom. Can it break over top of this high? Now, obviously, coming in the earnings, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for the rest of the day. But this is the support level I've talked about with PayPal multiple times. And you can see it a little bit better where here's your left leg, build the neckline, set the right bottom. This is near your breakout price, and it's sort of wicking into it right now. But you do get the gap up, and we fill the gap. Now, can we get that continuation off of that? Obviously, buyers were there off of that gap fill early in the day. But I think if they have a good earnings report, relative strength is 89, almost 90. So going into the earnings report, there is relative strength. I think you can get a gap up even over top of this 78.50 range and get some continuation where I think potential outs for this name could be up potentially 12.5%, if not more. I'm sure you have some sort of downtrend that's meeting in with this, sort of like that, give or take. Uh, and it's kind of testing that range right now. So that could be a catalyst for some resistance, but all it would take is a gap up tomorrow, and I think you'll get some continuation to the upside. If not, I'd say your downside risk potentially down to this upper 60s, where you got a gap fill around the 67.45. Yes, H, if you're still there, I will get to those names after I go through the sticky notes. We'll go over Ali, Schwab, and BAC. If you're still tuned in, I can't really tell. It's not showing me if people are uh, tuned in or not, but I will go over those names after the sticky notes we go over. So the other name that we talked about was MRVI, so let's go take a look at that before their earnings report. So this was a big runner on Friday. Large volume spike compared to its relative average. Now into the earnings report, obviously it looks like a solid red candle that's coming in, but still holding around this level. Uh, relative strength very close in this name, negative 13. So let's go take a look at the 15-minute chart for this. Now you can see here's your open candle. Now you retrace a little bit. Now you sell off. Now the current price that we're holding right here. Now you do have a left leg, tries to build a neckline, holds these bottoms, which is a nice trend line, and now a lot of selling pressure going into the earnings report. So kind of in the middle ground with this name, and on the 15 minute you are getting a negative break off of this. But if I just did a retracement on this move that it made Friday, holding around that 702. So I say both ways, uh, relative strength, right around that middle ground. So I think the big players are sitting right here. But going into the earnings report, you're going to know fairly soon. If you get a gap up over this, I think it's possible we can take out these highs that we have right here. But downside risk, if you give up this uptrend, a break at 13 could be further downside for this name. Uh, where here's your break at 13, you have some wick lows in the 12s, you could even be getting ready to set a new low underneath of these wicks. Uh, okay, I'll start moving through these a little bit quicker, and I will try and go over these very quickly. So let's move right along. Next one I talked about Disney. I mean, we'll just go over the daily chart for Disney because I think this chart setup for Disney is very interesting. You have a nice uptrend that you're holding right here. It could be some sort of ascending channel short term right here, but it's breaking. It sets the open price above that 200 day, and then you get the continuation move early, and you're sitting right over top of this breakout area where I would be looking for continuation in this range. Potential outs, you have some 105 resistance, and with a previous low, and then you have another gap fill around this 110. So that's what I'm going to be looking for with this name. Earnings report for this one is Wednesday. So that is the talk with Disney. I've talked about Disney multiple times. I'm long this name. ETFs, we're not going to go over these. I'll just go over the sticky note. These are some ETFs that I keep on watch. XLE is an oil ETF, relative strength, negative 44. MSOS is a cannabis ETF, positive strength, plus 43. FXI is a China large cap, positive strength as a fresh positive break. COWZ. This is more the cash flow names, but relative strength getting close to that positive break. The Nasdaq short, negative 88 on strength. And if you're looking for strength, I hold VT and VXUS, which are very positive strength names. And those are your world economy names right there, your world ETFs. This is 60% United States, 40% international. This is 90% international, and 10% United States. So you can see these two names very solid on relative strength. And those were the sticky notes for today. So going over, H is marketing all kinds of stuff. Ally, Schwab, Bank of America. I talked about those three names on Friday's live stream. If you wanted to go take a look at that, but I'll briefly pull those up because I think the banks are still just in a little bit of a standstill. But Ally in particular, relative strength negative 38. I think there's a clear descending channel where this top end probably meets in somewhere at that top end right there. But it's a nice parallel channel, and I think if you're patient enough, you can maybe get these low 20s again. If not, maybe even a little bit lower where we can dip back into these upper teens where you got a decent shelf of support right in around there. You can see we actually wick into, you break it, hold, and then we have a nice wick bottom into that 2150 on Ally, or Ally. SCHW, Charles Schwab, kind of in that area. It looks like it is respecting this uptrend I have set. Now, looking back at 2011, I think this is where that uptrend really makes a statement. Respects it on the COVID lows right here, and now we're wicking into this area right now. But same story, relative strength still a little bit weak, so that's why I'd say just be patient still with that. And BAC, Bank of America, I think you do have a clear descending channel. If we switch this over to the monthly, I do think that you have a clear uptrend building on the monthly as well. Wick, doesn't quite get there, gets there on the COVID lows, and now we're sitting around that area again as we speak. So let's go take a look at the daily now that we have that uptrend set. So is it going to be able to hold this uptrend? This is what the interesting level is, but I do think kind of the same scenario with Ali where you have this descending channel. You get some decent action off of this gap right here where it actually sets a close below it, but you get the gap up following day. But still trading in this channel. How does it act around this range? Now, if you get the sell off below this longer term uptrend, the gap that I'm waiting for, you have a neckline where you have a left leg, build the neckline, right bottom, and then you get the extended right leg. You're expecting one day you're going to back test the neckline right here. And then we have our gap fill underneath that mid 20s at 24.25. And you actually do have another gap down here in these low 20s. I like the value of this name down here in these low 20s, and I will be a buyer if we get some exhaustive moves down into these ranges. Sorry about that, my dogs are going crazy. So, oh H, you are going crazy. OXSQ, that looks like. One sec. Oh, dogs. Oh, dogs. Don't ever get a dog. All they do is cost money and cause you problems. I'm just kidding, of course. But let's go take a look at this ticker. Oxford Square Capital Corp. This one looks pretty interesting. I can see off of this daily you have a nice uptrend. Nice uptrend build. You don't quite get there on this, but this is how I'd have my uptrend. But holding it very well and actually looks fairly decent right here, where I'd look at this as kind of a neckline. Right around a 3 flat hold right here, which is a very interesting level, and you gap up from that. So how does it act around this 3 flat if it gets there? Putting in a couple nice candles and relative strength, getting a nice slope up, negative 52, dividends coming up, which looks reasonable. But yeah, if you can get this break, I think you'll have some buyers if it can break over top of this 310 area, actually today. Uh, but obviously, Um, it does it hold this uptrend? If we reject, does it hold this uptrend? This actually could be building your breakout where we trade down and then later on in maybe next week, it actually ends up being a breakout area around that 310. So an interesting level. I'm actually going to add this one to the watch list right there. Ooh, running out of breath. PFLT. PFLT. Let's take a look at this. This looks like it is another capital. I don't really see much of an uptrend unless you wanted to mark something like that, but I don't know if I would do that. But I do see this is a clear descending channel right here where I'd want to see if it's going to make the move, wait for it to break that channel. So let's say you get that move through that channel, and I can see it looks like it has a gap. Oh man, this would be where you could take like for a trade, but see how it acts at this gap. If you trade up to this range, I'd want to see it break the descending channel and then hold and set some sort of higher low on top of this downtrend is what I'd want to see there. Uh, WMB, natural gas. WMB, yes, I have been keeping my eye on natural gas. And this looks pretty interesting right there. I like this sort of look where you have your descending channel, but this descending channel is kind of consolidating, and you can see we're not really having that weight to the downside, and it's holding this support right here, which is your previous high. So this was a resistance level. You break it, you back test it, you back test it, you back test it. Now we're actually, You break below that area a little bit and it reclaims it, and now we're potentially setting a higher low. So you could have some sort of uptrend build right here where, if you connect this, this could be early signs of a ascending channel. But how does it act at the downtrend is going to be the big question with this. So yeah, WMB, not a half bad look, and it does pay a pretty nice dividend as well. They had an earnings report, maybe, oh, nice profitability, nice revenue print right there as well. So yeah, I'll throw that one on the watch list as well. I think that's a good name right there. FTCO, FTCO. Gold Company, OTC. Nice looking stair step right here. Man, you got some bangers. Uh, Clear descending channel. Now this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say I want to see that channel break and set some higher lows on top of that channel. So you can see it breaks it with full green engulfing. You have a sell off and a lot of volume coming in over this week right here. And you get the green candle to the upside. Now is this building a nice U shape right here where you're holding relative strength? Now look at when we break on our relative strength right here. When you break that relative strength is in on these days right here. When you break it, you have a consolidation day. It doesn't have the weakness to come down and fill this gap. You break through that top, and the re-entry, the reload area, you dip into that weakness just a little bit right there, but you're wicking into this previous highs right here, and nice wick candle comes in off of that level where you end up breaking over top of this high, and this is another breakout zone that's holding as support. So if this can continue building a nice U shape right here, I can see they have an earnings date coming up. Profitable company, pays a dividend. Uh, Revenue, I don't know. Looks like they're projecting solid quarter over quarter revenue. And looking at the year over year, that's pretty solid growth on that as well. So yeah, I'm gonna add this one onto the watch list as well. This one looks pretty good. So let's go add that. What else you got? Uh, so so the next ticker that you have sitting here watching is EXC. So, ah man, a lot of distractions at the household right now, of course. I never have distractions, now I do. You got a nice uptrend. This could be, in a sense, some sort of, nah, you don't really have that channel. But it looks like you do kind of have that, where this was a trend line that's holding. You kind of break that, you back test the bottom of it, and now it's still respecting that, and it still is kind of holding this uptrend right here. Relative strength, sitting pretty solid on relative strength. Got a dividend that's coming up. If I was looking at this for a potential trade, uh, could be looking for that third point of contact where you have one. You could call that a second point, but respects it very well right here. If we pull back in, this uptrend also could be meeting in with a gap right here where if you get an exhaustive sell-off, a wick through this meeting in with that uptrend and that gap could be potential move right there. So yeah, I'm going to add this one to the watch list as well. It looks pretty good. What else we got? Oh man, you got GWRS. GWRS, Global Water Resource. I can see off initial look, you are down near this support level, but relatively weak in that oversold area. Got the dividend that's coming up. Not the biggest dividend, but they are profitable. I'm sure year over year. Um, Year over year, 1, 2, 3, 4. Year over year growth of about 30%, so pretty good growth on this company as well. Yeah, decent look. Only thing that I have against it is relatively weak name, and on your commodity, you're setting lower lows on this, but this could be looked at as a neckline around this -40. So an early entry as we're getting closer to that positive break on relative strength. The one thing you're going to have to be able to fight through is this previous low, which is a flat bottom break. Now, what I mean by a flat bottom break is you test the low, hold support, hold support, hold support, but now when you give up that support, you can see we have one final wick into that low before we get this exhaustive move right here. So anybody that's in short on this breakdown right here, relative weakness starts on this stair step action right here, and you get the continuation. So are you going to have people looking to reload in off a 12 flat? That is the one concern that I would have with this. But yeah, not a half bad setup. Yeah, got to worry about the descending channel that you have right here. So you have in a sense some sort of descending channel. If it continue hold, now you do have this nice build of support over here. Now, one thing that's interesting is this is a neckline back test of the neckline. Now, you get the exhaustive move through that would wick you out of this trade if you took it, but you have a nice W pattern, higher low, extended right leg. One day you're going to come back test the neckline. A lot of days trading in this area, and then you actually do get that breakthrough. Now, same story. You have a left leg, builds a neckline, consecutively higher lows, and you get that extended right leg. Now, here's your back test of the neckline. Now, this one pans out very well as you get a nice swing trade opportunity right here from the bottom end of the channel to the top end of the channel, where this move, let's say you went in right off that neckline, where it gives you a nice 29-30% move right there. But now we're trading back down and it's respecting this channel. So I'd be really interested down here near this support. Yeah, really interesting name right here. The only problem I have is relative weakness. Uh, AMPS, I believe that one actually is on my watch list. Atlas Power. Yep, I do have this one on the watch list. Simply just waiting for relative strength. So when you get that relative weakness come in, let's say you're long this name. You took this positive break right here. Looks like a nice bull flag. You get the gap up continuation. Now this name ends up going weak on you. This is where we go weak. So let's zoom in right here just a little bit. Now when you get that weakness, this is the support that ends up giving out. You go relatively weak. Now if you just sold this name right here, there's going to be a couple trading days in right here where you're like, man, why did I sell this name? But your relative strength never reclaims positive. This is what I'm looking at right there. You see how your relative strength never regains positive? This is where you make bad mistakes as one, you're still respecting a downtrend right there. Two, you do get good volume come in right there, but this is where you get faked out on that 7 because you're relatively weak still. And then you end up giving up those lows. Now on this wick low, on this low right here, you see how we wick up to that area? So shorts that get in on this name, they make money all the ways to the downside. Now, this is what I was talking about, where those previous lows, and you can even say this is a flat bottom break, as this is the support you want to see hold. It gives up the support, the shorts make a bunch of money, and they reload it off of these lows. And why do they reload it? It's because it's a relatively weak name. You never even get close to positive right here, so you have a lot of continuation to the downside. If you just didn't rebuy back into this name because it's relatively weak, it saves you, we'll just go off of this nice flat bottom break right here. It saves you 32% to the downside. Now, when we get our relative strength closer to this positive area, this is where you could get those better moves up to the upside. So that's what I'd be looking for on that. GBIO. GBIO. Now this one looks a little bit more interesting to me. It looks like I pulled it up once or twice before because I had some stuff drawn in on it. You see you have a clear descending downtrend. It's not the most parallel, but you do have a descending downtrend right here. But why I probably put this name on my watch list is because this one isn't on my watch list, but why I was probably looking at it, I probably put uh, some stuff on it during this day, large volume day. You get the gap up continuation. Now, when you fill this gap, Here you get a slight positive break. Now you reclaim positive, and you were able to take out this high. So this could have faked some people out right there. And it's kind of rejecting that breakout zone right there, but still holding relative strength. Looks like they're supposed to report today. They don't have any revenue, and it's a negative name, profitability wise. So that would be one concern, is that this company doesn't make money yet. But it is interesting that on this gap update, you get a direct fill off of that gap, and now this is kind of the trading that's done. So if I mark an uptrend, you do have a nice uptrend. This could be, if you were looking for an entry, you're holding the levels around that 450 range. You do have earnings that you gotta worry about, but you're positive strength and holding an uptrend. So this could be your clear out underneath these wick lows right here, called a 430 out. If you wanted to take an entry on this, not a half bad look. I would respect this downtrend. Contact, contact, contact. Respect it. Hold a piece for the dream, where the dream is this gap down. We can zoom into it a little bit more. This is the dream move that you'd be looking for right here. Oops. There we go. So we zoom back over to here. If this is your dream move, an early entry on a positive strength name at earnings, this name could easily print you 200% move. So pretty interesting name. Because you requested it, I'll throw this one on the watch list right there. Yeah, what else you got? Uh, GWRS. I was looking at 10. Did I look at that name? GRWS. Did I type that in right? GWRS. There we go. GWRS. Global Water Resources. 10 flat. So yeah, I think that support at that 10 area is very interesting. Because it was a neckline trade before, it panned out very well. And that also is getting pretty close to this kind of descending channel right here, where if we continue the move down to that 10 flat, you have a lot of support, and that even ties in all the ways back over to 17th, where we're putting some tops up towards that 10. So yeah, a lot of support, and if you're looking at that as a potential, I like the valuation type of play. It pays a dividend, it's a profitable company, and you're trying to punch long. I think that's not a half bad idea of keeping that. So I will add this one to the watch list. And I'll keep an eye on that 10 level. If we get an exhaustive move down to that 10, it could be a potential trade right here. What else we got? So on GBIO, I don't know what it wants to do, but has been holding. I've been waiting for more news to arrive from Moderna. I'm not a huge fan on the news, as you know. If that's kind of the ties that they're in, I'm not surprised that it does have this downtrend, which starts, December 21st. You get the huge gap down continuation to the downside. If news did break in on this earnings report, that's where this gap up could come in. And those are where those exhaustive moves come in. A lot of times it's a lot of people jumping in with the news. But I think that this name could potentially have some upside up to this gap. I would be very intrigued in selling that gap, as in that's kind of meeting in near these lows. Now, this is just the IPO low right here. If you're able to fight through that gap, this could even make a larger run, where I would just identify your lows. Right here, you try to set a double bottom right here, and you're wicking into it as you break down, so it breaks that support and it back tests it a couple times. So yeah, you could even get further continuation on this name if it has a large short interest. That's where you'd see large moves like that. So I think this name could have some big upside. So I don't disagree with you there. During summer months, more utilities are used during hotter climates. Yeah, you definitely could be right there. And I'm sure that ties into a lot of stocks as well. So yeah, interesting setups. I liked a lot of the names that you mentioned right there, and I appreciate you for participating in the comments. I see we do have a second viewer. If the other watcher has any tickers or anything that they want me to go over, I'm more than willing to go over any tickers and just do some simple technical analysis, go over strength and uh, identify some breakout levels, even some levels that, if it breaks underneath, you could look for continuation to the downside on some names. But that kind of, let's go to take a look. And it looks like the one trade that I did take today as sort of a day trade was actually Fubo today, and why I put it on watch yesterday because it broke over top of these levels right here. It gapped over top of that breakout with a nice shaped bottom, large volume increase. Uh, Now we can go look at what my 15-minute chart was looking like. I kind of just been working this ascending channel, and I've had, you know, probably 25, 30 fills on this name throughout the day. But why I took the trade on today is this is the opening candles. Yeah, you break over top of these highs right here. Now I didn't take the trade right here. Where I took the trade was on these two candles right here. I don't remember if I had a fill on this candle, but when it showed me the strength, now your first pullback candle right here, you got decreasing volume, and then it follows up with three nice green candles. Now obviously this candle is a little bit more selling coming in, which is why this volume's a little bit higher. But this first red candle was the indicator when that volume decreased, is why I was looking to take the trade. Simply because you have some levels, relatively strong name on the 15-minute and the daily. So I was looking for continuation because that first wick through that 180 gap. So that's what kind of put it on radar, and I'm looking for potential extensions to this previous low, and maybe even into that 230 range. But I don't want to act like I'm perfect because I didn't get the true size that I wanted. I had a little bit more size built off of this 170 because it showed me the gap up right here. So early in the day I had this marked right here, and I had my biggest order size off of that 170 as it was meeting in sort of with the area that I wanted to buy some more. But as it showed me this wick, this is where I said, okay, 175, buy. 174 order was in, 173 order was in, 172 order was in. The 171 order was in. It wicks into it. I don't actually get the fill on that 171, so I was a little disappointed with that as well. But then we scalped it all the ways up, and then on this red candle right here, we hit a nice reload, and then we've been scalping it up. And actually during this live stream, I was on the ask at 187. I don't know if it would have filled right there, but this candle wicks up to 188. I'm pretty sure that would have gave me the fill right there. And yeah, we've cut out about 60% of the position now, so I'm looking to hold a piece of this for that move up in the 2, maybe even the 235, where we'll have some more outs. But Fubo, I think, is definitely one that could be on watch for you. Uh, I got the entry, so obviously it's a lot easier for me to say, uh, yeah, I'm going to hold this into the close. But it is one that's on watch. And another part that I like about this is you get the gap up and continuation, of course, but it doesn't have the weakness to retrace down to this gap, which meets in around that 150, which gave me a little bit more confidence. If it would have wicked into this and filled, I would have thought, okay, this name's going to have a lot more profit taking on it. But because it gapped up, anybody who is looking to go short on this candle to short it down to this gap, they're kind of trapped in it. Is kind of the mindset that I go about. But yeah, it's been respecting this sort of channel upbreak, and I am on the ask at 190 as well. So I haven't got that true move up to 190. But we did just get a 190, 187 fill right there, so I'm pretty happy with this. And now it's not the greatest trade. We had majority of our fills in around this area. 6% trade, so it's nothing to really gripe about. But the other trade I did have on watch was this GFAI. Now, I did not throw any orders in off of this. This is going to be a name I'm watching tomorrow. But I think you do have an ascending channel right here. And one part that I like about this is, a lot of people like taking the day trade on this break right here. So you break over top of this high, you have a nice green engulfing candle in continuation to the upside. Uh, Earlier when I was with this strategy, this is where I'd want to take that trade for, okay, it's going to go set another high. But, the patience, this is Thursday. this is what it does all Friday, and then it actually gives you the multi-day runner the second day after the initial move. Now, the bigger picture, where I like to look at relative strength, is you uh, gave up positive strength with a nice gap down, and now here's where you get that volume. Boom. Now this is another good example. This is where an initial volume break right here. This is 1, 2, third candle shows you, and you get the gap up after that third candle. Bull flag continuation. Now everyone takes profit. Boom, 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 boom. Now it goes back on the map on this day when, the potential run for this is up to this gap fill where, if somebody was smart enough, obviously I'm not smart enough, but if somebody was smart enough to take this back in off of this recent support right here, as it reclaims that support, the potential move from this type of entry right here is 123%. But I also think you have a lot of people looking to go short if we can get up to this range because relative weakness is slightly negative. But if we can reclaim positive, I think that this name is a pretty interesting one to keep on watch. So that is GFAI. But I don't think I'm going to take a trade on it on the back half of the day. I got to get ready to go to work. So, yeah, that's always not very fun. But I do also one other thing on this with this trade is this could be looked at as a left leg, builds the neckline, builds the neckline. Here's your higher low, which is your channel. And actually today I didn't have this channel set up right there. I did have this uptrend. Uh, but somebody, if they were just marking a parallel channel, you get that wick up to the top end of the channel. If we trade down in this 750 to maybe even this wick high right there, 725, that's going to be meeting in at the bottom end of this channel. This could also just be playing the course and trade in this channel and try to give you that move up to this gap fill. So that's what I'm looking for with GFAI. But yeah, other than that, if did you see Carvana? I, I was looking at it on Friday. I know they reported earnings. I thought, yeah, they reported earnings on Friday. Oh wow, I did not think that this was based off of this first initial wick on the day. It didn't look like it was gonna uh, be able to break that top, but it was a very interesting level that could have been marked right there. This is why this was. I thought that the shorts really took control of this, is because this was right around that breakout spot. If we go to a 1 minute, sometimes I like using a 1 minute, but you can see this a lot better. First 3 minutes of the open, you're right at that breakout spot at 11. And I'm sure there's people out there that definitely got faked out on this as they thought this was getting ready to break out. But then it definitely trapped some longs in there. That's why I thought that this one was, I was kind of marking it off like it didn't have a chance. Wow, that is a crazy move that it had today. That is absolutely insane. Is this all in today's trading day? Yeah, here's your Monday open. It gaps up, fills the gap. So if you were just had this name on radar just from this, gaps up, put an order off the gap, you would have got bottom wick. And man, that had a move. From that gap up, 26%. Wow. That's a crazy move right there. No, I did not see Carvana. I thought Carvana would be your speed. No, like I said, I thought a lot of longs got trapped in on this name on Friday. I didn't think, but if I was watching it, I probably would have been looking for, you did have some resistance built in right there. Maybe the trade from when you reclaimed 10. So as you reclaimed 10 right there, could have been your trade. That's where I would have probably been interested. But another part about that 10 is that's probably right around. I would have definitely had a lot of outs. So this is that 1050. So if you took the reclaim at 10, I would have definitely had outs at 1050 and definitely had outs at that 1070. And it actually gave you a pullback where I would have been like, yep, I'm going to get out of this trade. I probably wouldn't have even been able to stay in it for this final move of the day. So that's a crazy move that it's had right there. Yeah, for sure. But quickly we'll go look at the NQ, and yeah, it was This was what we were respecting. This kind of descending channel right there, and on Friday it kind of broke through that descending channel. Uh, and it looks like it tried set breaking over top of this resistance right here, but all in all, if you go look at the daily, this is a nice flat top uh, setup that it has right here. Where if this was your flat top, you're still trading over top of it. You set the close above it, and all we did was wick into the top of that flat top right there. So the NQ to me looks like it does have some continuation, simply because it has some clear outs over here as well, where you have a gap fill. Gap fill. This is a definite selling window in my opinion, of course. But then you also have some clear outs up here where, this could be the move that we're looking for. And if we just put a nice retracement tool through this, there's that 382 that you're rejecting. There's the half rejection. But these gaps are meeting in at your 618 and your 702. So this could be the potential move that we're looking to get on the NQ. Obviously, it's going to have to fight through some resistance in the 3 halves or 13 halves. But up here in the 14s, I'm definitely going to be looking uh, for some sort of rejection from that area where, you've been relatively strong. Here's your positive break, and your strength is held this whole way through. And now it's holding above this flat top, it looks good for continuation. But what happens when this relative strength goes back weak? That's going to be what I'm looking for. TRVN is on cancer news from China, big pop, but I want to see it revisit 125 to 150. Let's go take a look at TRVN again. 150. Or 150 to 125, so let's mark those out. My bad. So I would say that this 130, so that's kind of what the 125 you're probably looking at, simply because this was that previous low. Now when it gave that out, it gave you the retest before the continuation to the downside. Uh, I would say one thing I'd be careful with this name is the golden entry long was the break over top of this previous low right here, because you wick into it, and on the very open you reclaim that. So I think it's possible that some longs definitely got in right here, but if they didn't get in, like the solid long entries, if they didn't get in right there, I think they got in on the break of that $1 flat. So longs definitely holding a lot of control. And it's holding above this high right here, which meets in over to this previous low. So this one is a beast. I mean, this is a beast. This was the upward channel I drew right at the beginning of the live stream. So you could say that it's kind of revisiting this. Now, the first thing that I did was when you get multiple green candles like this. So on my 15-minute chart, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 green candles. The first thing that I do is I want to try and shorten this green candle move into 3 candles. So I want to go to a higher chart frame. So I go to that hour chart, and on this hour chart, you got these 2 nice green candles right here. Now the first thing that I'd want to do, mark that wick top of that first hour. Now you can see you have near direct correlation on this first pullback candle right here. So you pull back and you retest that previous high from that first hour. If we go to a 15-minute chart, you can see that's damn near wick low right there. But then that's also why this is kind of the channel. Now I didn't have this bottom end channel like this. All I did was connect these tops. So top, top. Now on this pullback right here, all I wanted to do was make a parallel channel. So that's a rough parallel channel that's wicking into right there. So if this channel breaks, one, does this 2 flat hold as support? If that 2 flat holds as support, you got to worry about this top over here for a potential leg, head, or a head and shoulders type of play right there of two holds, because this left shoulder right here would be the bottom end of your channel. So let's say you break this uptrend right now, you trade down the two, it catches a bid, and it retests the bottom end of this channel, then that would tell me, hey, this could easily retrace all the ways back down. Well, you could start with the initial breakout zone. So this was that first breakout. Here's that second breakout as it reclaims one. You could just have a retest of this. So that's why I may be a little bit careful with that 125 to 150 unless you see it start building a U shape. If it shows you a pop area and then it pops again, you see it reject the same area twice. That could be an eventual neckline break that it has, where the chart itself is going to need to present some sort of level for a breakout. So it's tough with this chart setup to say 150 to 125 looks good, because that 125 to 150 could easily end up being a retest of one or a retest of this gap, where then it gives you the move after that. So, uh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. The 125 to 150 is what you want to see hold. I can get on board with that. Uh, where that kind of ties into what I was saying, where the chart will present you a level to take some sort of breakout. Now, if it traded down into that area and you see it hold, 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 I wouldn't want to buy that hold support. I'd want to buy the breakout of that support, because that hold of support could end up being a flat bottom break where it holds, holds, holds until it doesn't, and that's kind of the flat bottom break. So the title itself kind of presents the meaning of the flat bottom break, but I'd look at it the same way as a flat top break as well. But yeah, this name, it could just go completely wild. Uh, so where we're trading at right now, you know, the next extension I'd want to see is 380. This could easily run to this 380 previous low. Voice crack. 380 previous low, but then you also have a 440 gap. So I'd want to watch out. Let's get. Yeah, it's crazy, man. This thing is just on a tear. But even after that, I would say this next previous low kind of meets in with that. So if you were in this and you had a golden entry, uh, yeah, see, it's already kind of showing you respect of this uptrend right here. All it would take is for this to run up. The next leg up, I'd be looking at 380 to 450. That's a crazy move right there. So yeah, that's insane. But this GFAI, oops, let's reset that. Uh, this is kind of the area where I would almost set an order if it was earlier in the day, not the last 30 minutes. I would probably be taking a trade on this for a back test of the neckline, and I would have open orders off of this area. Now the 15 chart, yeah, if it traded down here, that's below your area, but you have a nice uptrend right here, and I'd actually want to go to an hour chart where uh, I still think three nice green candles where you have the increasing volume this first hour. This is why you need more time to see this play out, which is why I think this could potentially be a play tomorrow, is because three green candles is very enticing to me, especially when you get the three increasing volumes. If this decreases in volume, next candle decreases in volume, even if it increased a little bit, when it for the bull flag continuation, I just want that candle when it takes out, call it a 9 flat, to exceed the volume of this candle, which is doable, 333,000. But this is your left leg. There's your neckline. There's your right bottom. It doesn't give you the candle close above this, so that's another thing that I would need more information on this, because the candle close above this is pretty important to me for an extended right leg. But you can see we are leaving that wick into that neckline right there. So an order off that neckline, call it a 750, you'd be sitting 15 pennies in the money right there. Even though it's just giving out that support, you can see that there is buying pressure there. So that is one that I am going to be watching for tomorrow, but no entries in it as of right now. Yeah, that's kind of my breakdown for the day. I appreciate you coming in and looking at or participating in the chat. Uh, a lot of these live streams are kind of tough when you don't have anything to look over to the right of the screen for. So I do appreciate that. If you got anything else you want me to look at before I head out for the day, uh, I'm kind of trying to stall before I have to go to work. Work is boring. Nobody likes work. I'd rather just trade the stock market 24/7. Another one you can keep on watch. It's a support level that I've been watching for a while. Is that COSM? But this one is kind of giving me the idea. You know, I was saying this earlier in the day is that this is going to be a flat bottom break. Here's your hold, 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 leaves a gap that gets filled, gives you a pop, hold, 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 hold. Is this going to give you another pop where I'd say you got a breakout price? Call it if it claims 4 and holds above 4, you know, this could easily be building a big U shape right here where you got some clear outs up here at 650, maybe even higher. You have a flat top gap that could break out over 23, but that breakout level is meeting in with this low kind of. So I mean, if we're talking about support holding at 3 for a potential move, I mean that this one could easily run for you. But even this IPO lows right here. Alright, yeah, if you're about to head out, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to call it right there as well. For anyone else that tuned in during the stream, I appreciate you for tuning in. And we're going to be live streaming around this time, but more in particular that 2 p.m. zone. So we will see you guys on